Well, it seems that my video recording cut out at some point. I guess I wasn't paying close enough attention to what was happening. And just going to see if I can adjust the exposure here a little bit. Oh no, it's pretty much where it should be. So it is Sunday the 4th of December 2016, and I was just talking about a woman who just passed and gave me quite the scowl, clearly indicating displeasure at seeing my picket sign which says Unitarian Universalists misuse blasphemy law to cover up and deny pedophilia and rape. And then as she was continuing on, she stopped to scuff her feet on my chalk slogan which says Unitarian clergy abuse sucks, clearly indicating her displeasure and clearly indicating a desire to erase the slogan. And I just find that ironic because instead of dealing responsibly with the issues that I'm talking about, i.e. clergy abuse of all kinds, both sexual and non-sexual, and cover up and denial of clergy abuse of all kinds, both sexual and non-sexual, basically, when you erase or try to erase my chalk slogans, or steal my picket signs for that matter, all Unitarians are really doing is proving my point. My protest is in part against the clergy abuse itself, but is also a protest against the cover-up and the denial and the concealment of clergy abuse. So any Unitarian who erases my chalk slogans, whether with a hose of water or whether it's scuffing their feet and so on, is basically only proving my point that Unitarians prefer to hide their clergy abuse problem than deal responsibly with it. So, anywho, we shall continue to circulate a bit. It's unfortunate. I guess what happened is probably the half-hour limit expired, and I didn't notice, that the half-hour limit of recording was about to expire. So, anyhow, it's got 3 chalk slogans down here. This blue one here says Unitarians cover up pedophilia and rape. Whoops, looks like, okay, no, it's just, so Unitarians cover up pedophilia and rape, sort of just straight to the point in terms of the UUA's false blasphemous libel accusation against me. They attempted to intimidate me into removing blog posts that told the well-documented truth about such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell and Richard Buell of First Parish Norwell. The actual accusation said, your unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape are defamatory. And it went on to say that my allegedly unfounded and vicious allegations about Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists were so defamatory that they actually constitute the criminal act of blasphemous libel, which I believe is section 296 of the Canadian Criminal Code. And when I saw that, I said, this is just ludicrous because for starters, the blog post that I posted about Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell and Richard Buell were by no means unfounded, and I wasn't aware of any other blog posts that I'd posted about Unitarian Universalists engaging in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. So it's bad enough that they pretended that my blog posts were unfounded, but to accuse me of blasphemy was just beyond the pale. I mean, Unitarian Universalists have a centuries-old tradition of opposing blasphemy laws. Well, I should say Unitarians and or Universalists, because up until 1961, they were two distinct, separate religious communities with somewhat different theologies, but they merged in 1961 officially. I mean, there was some cooperation prior to that, but Unitarians and Universalists until 1961 were two different heretical sects of Christianity. But they, going back hundreds of years, they were opposing blasphemy laws because, being heretical sects, they were often on the, receiving end of being accused of blasphemy. So they were against being accused of blasphemy and thrown in jail or worse. So just a total betrayal of the legacy of opposing blasphemy laws by the Reverend Dr. Peter Morales UUA administration in falsely accusing me of specifically blasphemous libel. So, I wrote back to Maitre Marc-André Coulombe about, I guess, a day or so after he made the accusation, after doing a little bit of research into blasphemy law and so on, and said to Maitre Coulombe in my first email responding to his cease and desist demand letter that, I was having considerable difficulty finding blog posts that match his description of unfounded and vicious allegations, yada, yada, yada. I wrote out the whole spiel that he said. So I asked him, please provide me with titles of the blog posts in question, or URLs, i.e. internet addresses of the blog posts in question, or dates. Give me something that identifies which specific blog post you're talking about, because he did not identify any specific blog post in his initial email or letter to me. It was actually an email that had a PDF attachment, which was basically a copy of an actual paper document that I was later served by a bailiff. So I was expecting Maitre Marc-André Coulombe to properly identify exactly which blog posts he was talking about, so I could have a look at them and decide how to respond to his demand that I take them down. I was already quite sure that that wasn't going to happen, but I was open to at least going through the rigmarole of finding out exactly which blog posts he was concerned about and reading them and deciding, whether or not they warranted either being taken down or possibly editing. I was actually prepared to, if necessary, edit some of the blog posts if there was something that, could actually be considered truly defamatory. I didn't think there was. But, I was prepared to go to that length. If there really was something that, could really, actually be considered to be defamatory, well, then I'd be prepared to not take down the whole blog post, but edit that section and maybe even put up a note, put up an error notice or something. But what happens? Maitre Marc-André Coulombe writes back to me 4 or 5 days later, so on the 4th or 5th of June, and very arrogantly says, your claims not to be able to find the offending material are not credible. Essentially telling me I'm a liar in saying that, I can't find blog posts that match his description of unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. So instead of providing me with helpful information that could have led to a thorough assessment of what I'd written, he basically said, go find it yourself. Well, I already knew which blog posts he was most likely speaking about. I knew that they were basically nothing defamatory about them, very truthful, based on newspaper reports about Unitarian Universalists who were actually convicted of pedophilia and or rape. So I read the blog posts that I believed he was most likely to be referring to, even though he didn't actually identify them, and decided that there really was nothing of any defamatory nature in them, and that they certainly didn't amount to blasphemous libel. And so I made it very clear to Maitre Coulombe that, I wasn't taking down so much as a comma, and that as far as I was concerned, his blasphemous libel accusation against me, along with a few other accusations he made in his initial cease and desist demand letter, was a false accusation. And that I was most certainly prepared to defend myself in court if that's what it came to, but I suggested to him that he would be very well advised to formally withdraw his false blasphemous libel accusation and publicly apologize for it, and that the Unitarian Universalist Association should tell the truth about just how many of its ministers have actually been charged, tried, and convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, and maybe even take it a step further by saying how many of their ministers had been credibly accused of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, but not necessarily charged, tried, and convicted of them. So this young woman gave me a nice yes as she saw the picket sign. I guess she was happy to see someone protesting against these issues, which is always gratifying. So anyway, it's been 4.5 years since I last heard from Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe. His second email and his second demand letter, which I later got a paper copy of, was the last communication I ever received from Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe. He continued to receive, and still does receive on occasion, such as a few days ago, communications from me reminding him that, as far as I'm concerned, his blasphemous libel accusation is completely false, and that until such a time as he formally withdraws it and apologizes and tells the truth. And when I say he, I'm including in that his clients, obviously. In fact, if it came down to it, it's really more a question of the Unitarian Universalist Association itself withdrawing the accusation and apologizing and so on, and he probably doesn't even know the full details of